All right, Steeler fans, it is time for another mailbag segment, second half of the Wednesday Let's Ride podcast. I thank y'all for sticking around. Hey, in the first half, I didn't want to be preachy. It's just trying to make people realize that this next week leading up to the NFL draft, it is going to be crazy. It is going to be chaotic. Got to keep your head on a swivel. Always keep that in mind. Let's get this started. I guess I should preface this with, if you ever wondered how you can get your question answered, all you have to do is find me on Twitter at jhartman, HARTMAN_PIT on Twitter. I put this question out every Tuesday. You respond. I answer it here on the show. Let's start with Jeff Coons, our buddy from up north. He said, greetings from Not Matt, Canada. Loved your Monday morning conversation with fellow Northerner Blue Check Beck. I'd love to see the Steelers trade down in round one with a team like the New York Giants, Cleveland, or New Orleans who might pass on a quarterback early. My question is, how far down the draft is comfortable? Knowing they can find value at defensive tackle, running back, and wide receiver after round one, trading out and adding a second and a later round pick may suit them. Agree or disagree? So you bring up a Cleveland Browns. Let's use the Cleveland Browns. Would the Cleveland Browns trade with the Steelers? Crazier things have happened. Let's keep that in mind. The Cleveland Browns possess the first pick in the second round. So if at 21, someone like a Shedeur Sanders is still available, the Steelers have done their homework on him. They've brought him in for a visit. But Cleveland calls up and says, listen, we want that pick. So we'll give you the first pick, 33rd pick in the second round. We'll give you a third round pick and maybe a pick next year. If I'm the Steelers, unless Shedeur Sanders is, in my opinion, and again, I'm the Steelers, is that type of prospect that's like, we cannot pass on this kid, then I make that trade. Because at the 33rd pick, there's still going to be valuable talent at the positions you just mentioned: defensive line, running back, and wide receiver. So if you can garner a top second round pick, maybe you get another third round pick, and then maybe a pick next year's draft, I would definitely do it. Now, I don't know if that's what the trade chart says. There's probably people listening like, that's not even right. Whatever. I'm saying I think the Steelers should be looking at potential trade options, both up and back. It is important to note, and I always use this as I don't know if Omar Khan feels this way, but I thought it was a great answer by Kevin Colbert. He mentioned how, let's say a team that is 4 spots behind the Steelers wants to trade to that current spot. He and the team staff of the Steelers would have to say, are there 4 prospects that we are okay having still available? And if the answer is no, they're not trading back. The reason being is that they're going to make sure they get one of their guys. So if there's 4 players still available, and like if we'd be fine getting any one of these guys, they would trade back and they would gain some picks from that trade. There's a lot of moving pieces to this, so we'll see what happens. Let's go to Maddie, plain and simple. He said, howdy from Atlanta, Jeff. With all the Shedeur Sanders buzz going around, it's starting to at least seem like somewhat of a realistic possibility. Do you see it as it's kind of a swing for the fences until you finally hit home run mentality? I don't see Kenny Pickett as a swing for the fences pick, but anyways, whether you want him or not as a fan, if he's around anywhere after 8 to 10, could you trade some 26 capital to get him, to go up and get him? It seems like Tomlin likes him and there's mutual interest. So why not swing for the fences? All right, so let's do this one at a time. Maddie, thank you for the question. I appreciate it. The first part, the Shedeur Sanders buzz. Again, Mike Tomlin likes a lot of players. He loved Justin Fields when he came out of Ohio State, knew he wasn't going to be able to draft him, but he loved him. And he eventually ends up being a part of the Steelers for a year. So I don't necessarily buy too much into that whole Mike Tomlin loves this guy. He likes a lot of players. Do I see a Shedeur Sanders draft pick as a swing for the fences approach, or do I agree to the NFL draft approach of swing for the fences until you finally hit a home run? At quarterback, it's a risky business based on the fact that if you're going to take a guy in the first round, you want to make sure it's a guy that you're going to want that 5th-year option for. And I don't know. And Shedeur Sanders is not as bad as people think. There's a lot of people out there that are really crapping on this kid. He's a decent quarterback. He needs to go to the right system. And I don't know if Pittsburgh is the right system. And so we'll see. Second part of your question. You didn't see Kenny Pickett as a swing for the fences pick. Well, he was the only quarterback drafted in that first round. And I don't think there was a quarterback after him drafted until the 3rd round. That tells you a lot. That's a swing. That may not be a swing for the fences pick. It's a pretty hard swing, though. And so I would not trade up to get Shedeur Sanders. I would be okay if he falls to 21. If the Steelers like him enough and they think he could be that guy, that's okay. Okay, sure. I'm not going to be ecstatic with the pick. But ultimately, Shedeur Sanders, if he would have to fall, I'm not trading up for him. He's not ready right now. I don't know if he's ready ever. If I'm trading up for a player, it's going to be someone that I think is going to be with the Steelers for a very long time and checks every single box you could think of. And I don't think that's Shedeur Sanders for me. All right, let's go to Sadie Hubler. She writes for SteelCurtainNetwork.com. She said, it sure seems like the obvious choice in the first round for Pittsburgh is a defensive tackle. If they were to draft another position, what do you think they would take at 21? Do you have a dark horse position in mind that might surprise us and they address? So the positions that everyone's talking about, quarterback, defensive line, running back, and I'd even say wide receiver. So what would another position be? I'm going to lean on Jeremy Betts 2 weeks ago I asked him this very question, and it was on the All Bets Are Off segment on the Friday show. And he said he thinks safety is a dark horse position that the Steelers could address in the first round if no one else is really available that they would like. I thought it was a great decision. I thought it was a great answer. I could also see cornerback possibly. And you're like, well, they have Darius Slayton. They've got Corey Trice. You can never have too many good defensive backs. So those two, looking at the secondary, is probably where I would look. And I guess the super dark horse would be if they drafted an edge rusher. That would be like ultimate dark horse pick. All right, let's go to Steelers 419. As an Ohio State Buckeyes fan, I hate that I really like Will Johnson and Kenneth Grant as our possible first-round pick. That being said, who would you prefer of the two if they're both on the board at 21? I've said this a bunch. I think the Steelers need to quit messing around with the defensive line. I said the same thing last year with the offensive line, and they finally did it when they draft Zach Frazier and they get Mason McCormick. They draft Troy Fautanu. Kenneth Grant, big plugger of a man, get him in the middle, stop the run, be that guy that can really disrupt play at teams like Baltimore, likes to run the football. They need that. So I would go with Kenneth Grant if those two are available. It's just the way I would look. Brandon Diaz, he has several questions. He said, was this the biggest? A golf question. This is fantastic. Was this the best moment at the Masters since Tiger in 2019? Talking about Rory McIlroy. I will say this. If you want to hear my full thoughts on the Masters golf tournament, go check out my Fairways and Dreams podcast. Again, search Fairways, the and symbol Dreams. I did 18 thoughts. I also wrote that article for ffsn.com. Go check it out. But I would say that it would probably be right up there with Tiger in 2019. It would be a second, but it's a pretty special event in golf history for sure. Next, he said, should other sports implement a no phone policy? For those that don't know, down at Augusta National Golf Course, where the Masters is held, they have a no phone policy. You are not allowed to take a cell phone, a digital camera, unless you are a credentialed outlet with official cameras. You are not allowed to have a camera in there. And it's funny, every single person that comes away from that event never says, I wish I had my phone. Because they've just loved being there and being in the moment, and no one had their phone. No one was snapping photos of Amen Corner. I think it would be pretty interesting to see if other sporting events, I mean, it's tough to police. I'm sure it's difficult, but it would be interesting to see what that would look like. Next, if you're Omar Khan, are you staying at 20 or moving up or down? I want to see how the board falls at 21. If there are, like we mentioned earlier in the segment, if there are some teams that are looking to trade back into round one, maybe for a quarterback, then I'm definitely considering trading down. If they can get a second round pick, that would be ideal. It's going to be interesting to see how the Steelers play their hand. Next, the longer Aaron Rodgers takes, the less I want him. Do others feel the same? I think that when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, he's such a polarizing figure. People either love him and they can't wait to have him, or they never wanted him in the first place and don't even want him to show up. So I don't think him waiting is moving the needle much. And then why not just roll with Mason? I think the Steelers believe that Aaron Rodgers gives them the best chance to win in 2025. And that's the ultimate goal, is to win in 2025. All right, let's go to Tyler. He said, hey, Jeff, greetings from Kingsport, Tennessee. Thanks, Tyler. I'm glad you're tuning in. He said, could you see the Steelers using the comp pick theory to this year's draft and move up from 21 to 8 if Sanders falls? Also, what are your 5 keys to success for the draft? Thank you. And he said, also, this would be using next year's draft capital, knowing they will recoup multiple picks. That your first part of your question about the comp pick theory being used in this year's draft is valid. It's also dangerous, though. Dave Schofield wrote a 2-part series. It was really good, really well done at steelcurtainnetwork.com about how the comp pick theory can work, but it doesn't always be, it's not exactly what you want. You think you're going to get a 3rd round draft pick for someone like Dan Moore, who got a ridiculously lucrative contract with Tennessee. But if he gets hurt or he doesn't play or he gets benched, well, that changes everything. If Justin Fields gets injured or he gets benched from the Jets, that changes everything. So banking on those picks can burn you. So I would be hesitant to use comp picks in this year's draft, even the thought of comp picks, because we don't know what those will be until closer to next year's draft in 2026. I would be very hesitant to do that. And what are my 5 keys to success for the draft? I think that, for me, I look at Omar Khan, and this is not me because I have no say in this. I'm just going to talk about like what are 5 things that Omar Khan has done in his time as a GM. He's been very patient. I think that's the number one thing he's been, is patient. He's let the board fall to him. I think that's a good trait. But he's also shown the willingness to move. You think back to when they traded, it was his first draft. It's when they eventually ended up getting Nick Herbig and Darnell Washington. They were lucky. Patience paid off, but they did make that trade to recoup some picks. They've also been aggressive in trading up if they feel like the player's worth it. They traded up a few spots to get Broderick Jones. That, again, you got to be willing to move. I think also trying to keep a balanced approach is really important. You look at the last few years of the Kevin Colbert era, and it was like, okay, we're really heavy on offense one draft, real heavy on defense another, or maybe there were 2 drafts in a row where it was offense, defense, and it causes this imbalance on the roster. You can't have that. You got to have a more balanced approach. And lastly, I think that Omar Khan, I think they've done a good job addressing talent and evaluating talent. Their draft picks have made the team. Their draft picks have, helped, and those draft picks have done something. It's better than nothing. And, not every draft pick pans out. If you listen to my podcast with Wesley Coleman, The Way We See It, that'll be today on the NFL feed, FFSN NFL, wherever you get your podcasts. I ran this on our Steel Curtain Network last week. Hope you all like it. Go check it out. He talks about the percentages of teams when they draft a player in the 1st round, 2nd round, 3rd round. How often do they get a second contract? You'd be stunned by how few times like a 2nd and 3rd round pick actually get a second contract with the team that drafted them. Pretty and crazy stuff. All right, let's go to Doc M. He said, it seems like every time I Google search the Steelers, the results are full of made up junk. Like the Steelers traded to the Eagles or traded TJ Watt to the Eagles or swapped him for Brock Purdy. Could you talk about how the Steel Curtain Network gets the information and develops the storylines? All right, so it is insane right now. I'll be completely honest. It's insane when it comes to some of these articles that I don't even know how they get published. My mom, God bless her, she sends me these screenshots from Facebook. And there's a reason I don't use Facebook. And like one of them said, Cam Hayward donates his entire salary to the youth of the Pittsburgh. Maybe it is, but that's probably something that if he were to make that public, he would make it public. There's been some other crazy stories too. I'm not sure where these people are getting off writing these articles. They deceive a lot of people. So at the Steel Curtain Network, I think my approach has always been, and this goes back to when I was at Behind the Steel Curtain, we want to give you the news first and foremost. The latest news, we want you to be able to go to our website, and we want you to be able to get that news. So right now it's top 30 visits, it's potential mock drafts, it's position breakdowns, player breakdowns. We want to give you what you deserve as a Steeler fan. Also, we want to give you commentary. We want to give people that are writing for the Steel Curtain Network to have an opinion and to have a voice. We want it to be done in a constructive way. We want it to be done in a professional manner, but ultimately we want them to have that opinion. I have never liked speculative articles that suggest a potential trade. And the way that they're crafted, I know how to craft the stuff for clickbait. I've had to do that enough in my time doing this job. I don't like doing that. I've never liked doing that. I will take a headline and adjust it so I think it's going to be clear and concise as to what to expect. But when you click on that link, you're going to get what you see. It's not going to be a Cam Hayward retires, and then you click on the link and it's from his local pickleball club. Like, I hate that stuff. I can't stand it. So for us at the Steel Curtain Network, I want to give Steeler fans what we view as a one-stop shop. When you come to our website, you're going to get authentic. You're going to get real coverage from us. So our mock drafts are the ones that we are writing. I'll cover a couple mock drafts here or there, but I used to have to scrape all these articles, and it was tiresome. And I hated taking stuff from the Tribune Review and the Post Gazette. If it's news, we'll do it, but otherwise, like, it's original thought. So go give us a check at steelcurtainnetwork.com if you haven't yet. Good question, by the way. Let's go to Matt Sable. He says, what would you rather trade TJ or Minka? Both are in danger of being expensive and past their prime by the time the Steelers are legit contenders. If I had to choose, I would trade. If I had to choose, I would trade Minka Fitzpatrick. I think it would be easier to replace Minka than it is TJ Watt. So if I had to choose again, you have to make a decision. I would trade Minka Fitzpatrick. Not that I want to trade Minka Fitzpatrick. I could see the value in trading him. His stock is rather low right now, but it would save the money. Again, I'm fine with him sticking around, but if I had to choose, that's where I would go. All right, and as we always finish out the show every single Wednesday, Steeler Fan 69 with some humor. He said, "Hello, my friend. My wife asked me if I ate her leftovers in the fridge. I said, no, I ate them on the couch." Next, what do you call an Irishman who bounces off the walls? Rick O'Shea. I love that. And then last one here. Chuck Norris doesn't wear a watch. He simply decides what time it is. And then he says, say hello to the family. Thank you very much, Steeler Fan 69, for always injecting a little bit of humor at the end of the mailbag segment. I thank everyone who participated in the mailbag today. I'm super happy that you guys still do this in the off season. I know that in season, it's crazy, the mailbag questions, but still, I do appreciate every single one of you. Make sure you check out steelcurtainnetwork.com and all of our podcasts, like the Steel City Insider, coming up today at 11 a.m. right here on the podcast network with Insider himself, Jim Wexel. It's a great show. Give it a listen. Other than that, that does it for me. I'll be back on Friday. You know how we finish these up. Be safe, be kind, and God bless. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you on Friday. Go Steelers.